About 15,000 soldiers are on the verge of deploying to Ukraine, and this absolutely changes everything in the conflict with Russia. The most substantial military commitment from Western allies is close to becoming a reality, and the outcome of what follows could shape the fate of Europe itself. If Ukraine's fight for sovereignty and freedom has your support, hitting that subscribe button and liking this video would be greatly appreciated. It allows us to connect with more people who care about defending Ukraine, and every show of support matters. Now, what's ahead in this video is something you absolutely must hear. A massive security agreement is about to be signed, one worth hundreds of billions of dollars. British and French boots could potentially be on Ukrainian soil, and there's what Donald Trump discussed with Zelensky in private at Mar-a-Lago. But let me first guide you through the explosive developments that recently unfolded. A bombshell report was dropped by the Financial Times on January 18, 2026. Ukraine anticipates finalizing a framework agreement regarding security guarantees with the United States immediately following the World Economic Forum in Davos. The Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Markarova, announced that Washington and Kyiv intend to sign an important document concerning Ukraine's economic recovery next week in Davos. An $800 billion reconstruction deal is what we're discussing, one that will transform Ukraine's future. But things become even more intense from here. The agreement on security guarantees has proven far more challenging to negotiate. The Financial Times was told by two Ukrainian sources that they're hoping to agree on general terms to be signed in Washington shortly following the conclusion of the Davos summit. This represents diplomatic maneuvering at the very highest level, and the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. The military dimensions of this unfolding situation were revealed by the Times on January 8, 2026. Up to 15,000 troops from the United Kingdom and France are under consideration for deployment to Ukraine should a peace agreement be reached. Allow that to sink in for a moment. Ukrainian territory hosting European soldiers who would serve as a deterrent against Russian aggression in the future. In the modern era, this is unprecedented. Now, from earlier, more ambitious plans, these numbers represent a significant departure. As part of a combined force of approximately 64,000 under the Coalition of the Willing framework, London had initially contemplated deploying up to 10,000 British troops, but military realities have necessitated a recalculation. Less than 7,500 soldiers could end up being the UK's actual contribution, which already constitutes a massive burden considering Britain's regular army comprises merely around 71,000 trained personnel. Besides the UK, France remains the sole country publicly expressing readiness for direct troop deployment inside Ukraine. The overall contingent would be supplemented by French units, with deployments planned in the country's western regions, distant from the active front lines. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, previously stated several thousand French troops could function as a peacekeeping force. A different approach is being taken by Germany. Near Ukraine, particularly in Romania or Poland, Berlin is contemplating deploying forces, which would allow them to contribute to European security while avoiding a direct presence inside Ukrainian territory. President Zelensky spoke to reporters on January 7, 2026, regarding the scope of these security discussions. Guarantees are being negotiated by Ukraine with partners at sea, in the air, and on land. The president made clear there's no discussion of a nuclear umbrella from France and the UK being deployed over Ukraine. Instead, on licensing agreements for co-production of military equipment, additional funding for personnel, and air defense strengthening, that's where the focus lies. The previous day, on January 6, a critical meeting in Paris took place between Ukraine, the United States, and coalition of the willing countries. Continued support for Kyiv was agreed upon, and their unity on achieving a lasting peace was confirmed by the parties. A declaration was signed by Ukraine, France, and the United Kingdom, establishing a joint coordination group. The first concrete step toward Western troops deploying in Ukraine after the war ends. That's what this represents. A meeting with President Trump could happen in the very near future, Zelensky hinted. He explained that when the issue of security guarantees extending beyond 15 years was raised during December's meeting at Mar-a-Lago, Trump paused. His team would consider it, the US president said. During their upcoming meeting, whether in Washington or elsewhere, Zelensky anticipates receiving a definitive answer on the timeline. Zelensky declared on January 8, 2026, that essentially ready for finalization at the highest level is a bilateral document on security guarantees from the United States. Successful negotiations in France were reported by Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Rustem Umerov. Recovery and economic development documents are being jointly addressed by the negotiating groups alongside the security framework. In British defense circles, the belief among analysts is that Russia is unlikely to violate any ceasefire agreement with Donald Trump as mediator, as a powerful deterrent serves the fear of possible U.S. retaliation. Underpinning the entire strategy of deploying European forces as tripwire guarantees is this calculation. The United States has for the first time expressed willingness to consider providing Ukraine with security guarantees that could include American troops on Ukrainian soil. This was reported by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Washington's position has undergone a seismic shift that this represents, and fundamentally altered could be the post-war security architecture of Eastern Europe. Not on board, however, is everyone. Ruled out by Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was sending Italian troops as part of potential security guarantees after the coalition of the willing meeting in Paris was attended. Ukraine's security continues to be supported by Rome, but without forces being deployed on Ukrainian territory. Under the plans being discussed, on training the Ukrainian army would British and French forces focus, along with overseeing the creation of secure facilities for military equipment and weapon storage. A long-term commitment to building Ukrainian defensive capabilities is what this represents. The credibility of future security guarantees must be proven by partners' ability to exert effective pressure on Russia right now. This was emphasized by Zelensky. That the U.S. side will engage in talks with Russia is understood by Ukraine, and feedback is expected on whether genuinely ready to end the war is the aggressor. Possible options for finalizing the basic framework for ending hostilities have been presented by the Ukrainian side, with potentially heading to Ukraine being 15,000 European soldiers, on the table being an $800 billion reconstruction commitment, and at the highest levels being finalized security guarantees. Transforming before our eyes is the landscape of this conflict. J&J's military report is what you've been listening to, where advanced weaponry, global defense, and the latest in military strategy is what we analyze.